Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Megan Winch, and I'm one of the recruitment and admissions advisors here at the Side Business School in Oxford. Thank you for joining us for the second session as part of our virtual Oxford MBA Open Day. Before we start, I just want to check that you can all hear me okay. So if I could please ask you to type a yes into the chat box at the bottom of the screen. Yeah, perfect. Lots of yeses coming through. Thank you very much. So it's a pleasure to be joined this afternoon by our brilliant alumni panel. I'd like to invite them to now turn their cameras on, please. Thank you very much. Thank you so much to each of you for taking time out of your, I'm sure, very busy days to join us today. I'm sure everyone listening has lots of questions for you all. So if I could ask those of you who are dialed in to type your questions into the Q&A box, please. So to kick things off, could I please ask our panel to start by giving a brief introduction to yourselves, a little bit of background, and then we'll jump straight into the questions. So I'll go with the order that's on my screen. So Aditya, if we could start with you, please.
Sure thing. Hi, hi everybody. Welcome. Thanks for taking your time for this chat. I'm excited to be here. My name is Aditya. I was part of the MBA class of 2015-16. I work in product management for a company called VMware. I've also worked in product management at Amazon quite recently. My interest was always in the tech space. So if you have questions about that or the tech OBN, etc., I'll be happy to answer those. I see Laura on my screen next.
Okay, hello everyone, welcome. I'm Laura Aristizabal. I'm originally from Colombia. I'm part of the class 2018-2019. As a background, I was a lawyer, and then I changed into consulting. I worked for McKinsey & Company for years. Then I went to do my MBA at Oxford. After that, I worked in a nonprofit that works for unemployment in youth population in the world, particularly in the UK, managing the digital programs. And now I'm planning to return to McKinsey as an associate in Colombia in the Latin American office.
Lovely, thank you, Laura. Simon, if you wanted to go next.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Simon Spear. So I'm head of UK Digital Strategy at Tech UK. Tech UK is the trade association for the tech industry in the UK. So we have about 850 members ranging from startups all the way through to large multinationals, including the likes of BT, Google, Microsoft, and so on. Prior to the MBA, I was working in government and then did the MBA and transitioned to this role.
Perfect, thank you. And Mariah, if you'd like to go next, please.
I'm originally from the US, so prior to the MBA, I worked at Microsoft as a tech consultant, so I have a tech background. I came to the UK to do my MBA at Oxford for the 2017-2018 class, and I have stayed in the UK, so I'm currently in London, and I'm now working at Google as a cloud consultant. So using kind of a lot of the technical skills that I had prior to the MBA, but also coupled with all of the business skills that I learned on the MBA to work with customers around the Google Cloud Platform.
Perfect, thank you. And Arshad, if you'd like to go next. Oh, not sure if we can hear from Arshad. Would James, you want to go next, please?
Sure, no worries, I'll give Arshad.
Thank you.
Hey guys, so James, I'm from Australia. I did the MBA 2018-19. My background is in healthcare SaaS. I started a healthcare technology company in Australia. Did a little bit of work for startups in Silicon Valley for a couple of years before I went to Oxford, and now I'm working for a pharmaceutical SaaS startup in London. So any questions on those lines, no problem.
Perfect, thank you. Not sure if we can quite hear from Arshad at the moment, but we will come back to him. Lovely, so thank you for all the questions coming in. Keep them coming in through the Q&A box. So we'll start with the first one. So that says, how do you see the business school contribute towards someone who is looking at a B2B sales career, given the specializations are more on marketing, operations and finance, etc.? Not sure if anyone wants to just jump in with that one.
I might be able to help a little bit. So sort of partnerships and growth at Veritrack at the moment has a little bit of that side to it. On the B2B SaaS side, I think a lot of it's not so much about direct sales. I guess, structure or direct sales techniques. A lot of it's going to be around the interactions you're having with your cohort, some of their experience and some of the problems that they've come to. And if you've got a B2B SaaS background or a sales background, you can apply maybe some of your learnings in the past to those new problems. Also, I would say I did meet a couple of people who were on the B2B side who gave me some, I guess, insight into how they would handle some of those problems. I guess that'd be a brief overview of how that might help.
Yeah, I mean, and just add to that. So it's not a role I've gone into, but I know there's quite a lot of our fellow classmates that have gone into B2B sales roles. So I think the MBA is a platform to kind of take stock of where you're at and understand what are some of the opportunities and give you the chance to go out and speak to some of these companies. The exact role you do, I think the MBA gives you a general level of understanding of what are the options out there, and then you can then focus down on what you want. And whilst what you learn in the classroom might be more specific to the operations, marketing and finance, I think the overall experience and the people you talk to goes far beyond that. So it will equip you, and a number of our classmates have gone on to do those types of roles.
Nice, thank you. I'm going to jump in with another question. I have one here that is specifically for Aditya, and it is, what is the scope of having a successful career in product marketing management after an MBA from Oxford?
Sure. So I'll respond to that in two parts. The first part is, for a specific career path, such as product management, or let's just say product marketing management, I think there's a bit of the MBA can provide you with the tools or sort of the frameworks, and it can provide you with the networks and the learning, but you will have to chart out a bit of your own path towards getting into any specific career. That holds true, I guess, for all of the range of careers that each of us has on this panel today. The second part of the answer is that specifically for product marketing, from my experience, I think the marketing department at Said is quite strong. For instance, if you look at Professor Andrew Stephen, who's the L'Oreal professor for marketing at the business school, and people like Rhonda Haddy, who used to be our marketing professor, there is solid bench strength in terms of the quality of research and the kind of case studies that they bring to the table. So there were some wonderful digital marketing and technology marketing related topics that we were able to unpack. In our time, I think there was this partnership that we had with Allianz for helping them bring some of their digital products to the market. So all of those experiences were really good, and I think some of my colleagues went on to product marketing careers on the back of the learning that they took away from all of those experiences. So I hope that helps, and if there's any follow-up, I don't mind, Shlok. Thanks for the question.
Lovely, thank you. So if we'll go for a bit of more general question, why did you specifically choose Oxford as an MBA program, and what did you find unique about the course?
I can start to answer that if that helps. Personally, I chose Oxford. I was solely looking to move out of the US, so I was just focused on schools in the UK. I really liked the one-year aspect of it. Of course, leaving a job or a career, earning money basically for over a year is hard to kind of fathom. But I really liked the one-year aspect. And then I also attended some events actually in the US. So there were some open day type events in the US, which was amazing. And just kind of talking to the alumni there was really helpful. So I made a really good connection with one of the alums that I had heard from, and she and I kind of kept in touch. I was also applying to other schools in the UK, but I felt that the people that I had met at the Oxford events were super friendly, really willing to engage, really willing to kind of go out of their way to discuss the school. And then of course the whole Oxford element, so the colleges, the dinners, the balls, the Oxford-y parts of it were also another piece to my decision, along with the social impact. So there's loads of different things that you can do with an Oxford MBA, but many of my colleagues and many of my peers in the MBA went on to do something with social impact, which I thought was super interesting and a really good way to use an MBA. So I thought that was something that I'd like to also explore and just have those classmates with me as well.
I can go next. So I personally chose Oxford because of the social impact focus of the MBA, but also because of the university itself. So my interests were very related like to politics and humanities. And being at Oxford, you have like all this contact with other schools, other talks. You have the Oxford Union, you have a lot of societies, like all the events that are organized by the colleges, etc. So it's like a more holistic approach to business, and that's something that side business school like bring to the table.
Yeah, and just from my perspective, the reputation of the you can probably tell from the accent I'm British. The reputation of the university is phenomenal. The school itself is excellent, but the university reputation is obviously a world-class, world-leading, and that had a major impact on my decision. And I know from a number of the international friends and classmates, it was the same. The reputation of Oxford around the world is fantastic, but also that the experience, the college experience, the balls is so amazing, so unique, that it really did, for me, stand apart from some of the other schools I looked at.
Great, thank you very much. I have a question specifically for Laura, and it is, how did the MBA assist you with your career transition from being a lawyer to being a consultant?
Okay, so I transitioned to consulting before the MBA, but I did like the career as a consultant. So I learned, for example, finance and Excel modeling and everything by working. So I never had like the theoretical knowledge to do that. So the MBA was perfect because it was a course where I literally learned the theory that was behind everything that I was learning. And also the networking, because like my networking was mainly lawyers and like people that work in politics and stuff. So when I went to Oxford, I also met friends from other industries and like that were more related to the kind of things I wanted to do.
Great, thank you. Another one that's more for everyone. Could you please describe what a typical day studying at Oxford Said was like for you? I mean, obviously you've been in different years, but if you could just kind of explain what a typical day was like.
I guess that everyone's different, so I can go first if you like. So classes pretty much all day. So you wake, for me, I was maybe 20 minutes away from college. So got up, straight to class, breakfast in the morning, get to meet and have lectures, sort of your morning lecture, lunchtime generally with classmates, afternoon lectures. Depending on what time of, I guess, the term or semester you're in, maybe you'll be booking a room and working with your group, or heading up to either the library at the business school, or maybe I used to I was at Mansfield College, so I'd cycle to and use my college library because it was sort of old and quite nice. And then generally you're probably gonna get a text from someone about getting a drink at one of the pubs. And then I don't know which way your night's gonna go from there. But generally pretty academically rigorous during the day, but then really a lot of the richness is around spending time with your classmates after the day. And that's sort of where I got a lot out of my year anyway. Maybe.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I mean, it is very much a sort of work hard, play hard mentality. A couple of things that you could add in the morning, should you wish. I didn't, but a lot of people did, would be rowing. A lot of people get up very early and go for a row and are part of the college rowing team. We had a few people who were part of the Oxford Blues rowing team. And then there's college dinners. So you'll be a member of a college and you'll be able to invite friends and classmates over to dinner, and more often than not, they will reciprocate and you get to go to visit a number of different colleges and hang out. And it's that's an incredibly unique experience. And you're having dinner in these fantastic halls, some of which are literally the halls from Harry Potter. Others are still magnificent, though not as famous.
So the proximity to London is also great. So while Oxford is an amazing city to spend time in, and you do get to have these dinners and your classmates are there, and that's awesome. 1 year is obviously a short time period as well. So a lot of my classmates, sometimes in the afternoons or when they didn't have lecture, would just pop on a train down to London. So it's about a 1 hour train and you're right into Marylebone Station. So you kind of have London at your fingertips as well. So you can go and grab a drink with, you know, an alumni that live in London, or you can meet up with a coworker or a friend from before, and you can be back, you know, you can make the round trip and have a drink and be back in a couple hours. So definitely recommend hanging out in Oxford as much as possible, but London is also entirely reachable and definitely at your fingertips too.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So a question to all of you from Vicky. Were you clear from the get-go on what career you wanted to get into after your MBA? And did anyone find this perhaps changed while you were on the MBA?
Can I take this one and also use it as an opportunity to introduce myself? Sorry for the issues at the beginning.
No problem, go ahead.
The guy working in tech had tech issues, so there's no irony there at all. So my name's Arshad Taylor. I work at Amazon Web Services, and like Laura and James, I was in the same cohort as them. Personally, for me, I had a very clear view on what I wanted to do post the MBA. And the benefits of that are entirely up to you. I know a lot of people in the cohort who kind of came in looking to discover, you know, did some soul searching through the year to really understand what they wanted to do and change their minds. For example, I know one person who wanted to do financial services but ended up being an entrepreneur and started up a business in the United States. Personally, for me, my journey was I was a technology consultant and I wanted to move into the cloud space and do kind of business development activities. So I think there's merits to both of them, but for me personally, I know there were some benefits to having that clear vision because it allowed me to focus my efforts through the year.
I just want to add to something that Arshad just said about having a clear focus at the beginning of the MBA. I thought I had a clear focus when I arrived. And then the beauty of the MBA and that year of being an MBA student at Oxford is that you're actually allowed to change your mind several times, which I think I did. So I remember going to consulting, hiring processes, just sort of like sitting through those discussions, trying to figure out what a career in consulting looks like. What does a career in private equity look like, or you know, what might it mean to move into the social sector? So I think I dabbled in a lot of those, you know, how might I fit in this space kind of conversations with a lot of colleagues, you know, in some of these drinks, you know, an evening at drinks like James mentioned, or also with some of the careers folks who come to the school. So that year gives you the opportunity to do that several times. And although you might come to the MBA with a clear plan, and eventually my plan was to always to go back to a technology product management role, which I ended up in after the MBA. But what I immensely enjoyed was the ability to, you know, be able to change my mind several times during the course of the year.
Yeah, and Aditya's not alone in that. I mean, a lot of people will come in with one idea of what they want to do, and some will stick to that, and that's fine, and others will very much mix it up, and it will change a few times. A bit of advice I was given, which I always share on these sort of things because I think it's really useful, is don't be too obsessed with what you want to do when you go in, because that will vary. But when you get to Oxford, there's going to be so many different things pulling you in different directions. In all manner of speaking, but from a career point of view, you might be thinking you'll have friends who'll be interviewing for consultant jobs, you'll have friends who are interviewing for the big tech companies, people looking at banks, people looking at government, and so on. And the temptation will be to go along to all of these different things, which are interesting. But actually, I think the advice I was given was don't necessarily think about what you absolutely want to do, but think about what you absolutely don't want to do. And if you know for a fact you don't want to do consulting, then there's no point spending time going to those consulting things. It seems a very obvious thing to say, but you're going to see loads of people going to those things and you think, I might as well go along. Whereas actually give yourself that time, because one of the things that's going to be most precious during a year is time, because it's only a year and you're going to want to do everything. So if you know what you don't want to do, that is very much a step in the right direction.
In my particular case, I was very interested in going into social impact, at least to try it, because I've never done it before. And the MBA was the perfect opportunity to do it, because I did my internship in social impact, and just after the MBA, I also worked in social impact. So I think you can just take advantage of those opportunities, the internship, or also to be part of different like societies or groups, like consulting groups and things like that, just to deep dive in that thing that you really want to do, just to know if that's exactly what you want or not.
And also just to add on, hopefully this is a bit louder so people can hear me. Sorry, I was quiet before. Just to add on, I think specifically +1 to what everyone said, but specifically to what Simon said as well, you don't have to know what you want to do, and it's also okay to not want to do consulting or to not want to do banking. I kind of went in like, sure, I could do consulting. That sounds fun. And then I did my first case study and was like, nope, this is not for me. So it's totally okay. Like, I think the first couple months, a lot of people are, you know, I want to work at MBB, I want to be a consultant. And that absolutely is 100% a great, you know, career path and a great, you know, want as well out of an MBA. But if it's not yours, you don't have to make it something that you want to do, or it doesn't have to be what you want to do. Like Laura said, social impact is a huge reason that people choose Said as well. So don't feel pressure. I think I definitely felt the pressure to want to be a consultant or to want to, you know, do kind of management consulting, but it's not something, you know, that there's so many other career paths as well. So definitely kind of broaden your horizons and search. And I think throughout the year, you'll definitely see that, and you'll be able to kind of decide what you definitely don't want to do. So yeah.
Thank you guys for your detailed answers. I've had a couple of questions come in. I think James already briefly touched on this, but people would like to hear a bit more about the colleges, kind of how they enhanced your experience, which one you selected, how you selected it, and which activities you took part in. So if maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
I guess I can sort of go again there. Yeah, so I was at Mansfield College. I wish I could be more technical than this, but I selected it because it was right in the middle of Oxford. There was a little bit more to it than that. It had a history of accepting the most, I guess, private school entrants, and it had a history of accepting people from sort of all different races, religions, etc. So that was sort of, it was known as a bit of a rebel college, which was sort of right down my alley. I loved it. I had a great time there. I tried to get involved as much as possible. So I played a bit of cricket for them. I went down and had some tennis. I went to a lot of the dinners, as sort of Simon mentioned earlier and others have mentioned. Getting involved with your college is awesome, and it's a huge part of Oxford for me. You can do as much or as little as you want there. You're in control. Some people got super involved. One of our cohort who was absolutely amazing, Julia, she ended up bartending at her local MCR at Oriel College, and she got to meet a lot of her cohort that way. So it's a huge part if you want it to be, and I think it's very enriching to the experience.
So I can jump in if that's helpful. So the way the colleges work, so it's around 30 or so. If you're studying an undergrad, what you're studying is directly linked to the college. So if you're doing PPE, there's a handful of colleges that will do that for undergrad. For postgrad, which the MBA is, you will be able to pick any of the colleges, and the colleges have to offer at least one place to an MBA student. So in theory, there'll be an MBA at every college, with the exception of All Souls, which is quite different for a variety of reasons, and you'll hear about that when you get there. But so you can choose any. Some of the older, the more historic colleges will have fewer places. So somewhere like Christchurch will have 5. I went to Brasenose, which had around 10 at the time. Green Templeton College was, I think, the most popular amongst the MBAs and takes on the most MBAs. These might have changed slightly, but there was probably about 100 or so of the MBAs, or certainly 80 or so. And then so selecting college, it's worth thinking about, do you want to be in a college with lots of MBAs? And there's no right or wrong answer here. Do you want to be a college with lots of MBAs, or a few MBAs and get the chance to meet with other people? Do you want to be in a college which is old and has the history, but probably doesn't have as nice facilities as some of the newer ones? Do you want to be based in the centre of Oxford, or do you want to be slightly outside of Oxford, where the college will probably have a bit more larger grounds, but won't necessarily won't be as easy to get to? So there's a whole lot of information, and I know there's been a few blog posts written about kind of choosing choosing the right college. They're all fantastic. They're all unique in their own different way. So it's about kind of finding the right culture fit in terms of what you're looking to get out of it.
So in my case, I really wanted to stay in campus. So that was like what helped me make the decision. I needed a college that had on-site accommodation, because I never had that like college experience before. And that's how I chose. I was part of Green Templeton College, and yeah, it has a lot of MBAs, but it was great. I mean, living at the college, I made lots of friends, for example, from law school. There were also a couple of students that were studying medicine. Like, so it was really cool. For you to make the decision, I think it's basically based on your interest also. So if you want, for example, to play a specific sport, just look for a college that is quite strong in that sport, where you can be part of the team. The food is also very important, so that was also part of my decision. People told me that the food at my college was amazing, and for me, I didn't even ask. I was like, okay, this is a main reason to choose that college. But for example, my college only had like specific formal dinners, not food every day. So if you want to have like food every day, maybe if it's not awesome or whatever, then choose a college that has food every day. So there's a lot of different points to make the decision.
There's no wrong answer. So I think like all the colleges are great, and they all have, let's call them advantages and slightly less advantages, but I think all the colleges are amazing, and kind of like Simon said, there's most of them you'll have at least one other MBA there with you, so you'll be able to kind of have at least one connection, and others you'll have loads of MBAs there too, but that doesn't mean you can't meet other people outside of the MBA. So many dinners you can sit across from. I remember I was at one college dinner and I was sitting across from this guy, and I asked him what he was studying, and he was doing a DPhil, which is a PhD in the origins of the universe, it's such an Oxford like title. And it's just fascinating because you get to meet these sorts of people that are at your college as well. So you kind of have the interaction with the MBAs during the day, but then, you know, at college dinners, you can meet just people that are doing the most fascinating degrees too. So there is no wrong answer with colleges. They're all great. And yeah, just keep doing your research and see what works best for you, because what works best for you might not work best for someone else. But it's a fun kind of little other family that you have besides the MBA.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. There's a lot of questions coming through about families. Manuel specifically asked, did anyone come with their partner to the program? We actually did a webinar earlier this week, which is on our YouTube channel, on coming to Oxford with your families and partners. So please do check that out. But if you guys wanted to share your experiences.
So I can talk about mine. One of the reasons I chose Green Templeton, even though it has a lot more MBAs, is because it offers accommodation for married students. My wife joined me in the middle of the MBA, and I know that I had a few classmates who came to Oxford with their kids and their partners. So yes, so the MBA does, the university offers this sort of support, you know, where you could actually, this could be a criteria on the back of which you pick a particular college over others. Within the MBA program, at least in our year, the partners had their own group, and the university and the business school did a lot of partner-specific events, to which sometimes MBAs weren't invited. So, you know, that was their own sort of special community. One fun thing that happened was that quite a few partners actually guest attended some lectures, depending on their levels of interest. So it was a vibrant sort of community in our year, and I'm assuming that it sort of continued. But there is a lot of support that Oxford offers, the MBA program and the broader university, and the partner experience has been thought through. You know, this feedback from every year's class that goes back. So the university is quite mindful that this matters to students in this sort of age bracket that come to the MBA program.
If no one else would like to share their experience, I can jump in with another question. I'm grouping a couple together again. A lot of people are curious about Oxford Said's focus on social impact and entrepreneurship in the curriculum, and we're wondering what your experiences were with this.
So I can take that one. I don't know if things changed since 2018, 2019, but in our year we had like a specific group that had like classes and sessions about social impact. So you could take that on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So that was one of the things. The other thing is that you have like a lot of activities related to social impact in the school. So talks or visit from specific employers or things like that are very based on social impact. And then as electives, you can also choose electives related with social impact. But I think that is more kind of related, like with the image and the mission of Said and of the Oxford MBA program itself. So like they try to present everything related to social impact and the rules of the game and things that have like a higher impact than just like doing business.
I guess I could sort of maybe take up on the entrepreneurial side. There's an EP track, so an entrepreneurship project, and basically you're grouped up with team members and other MBA. You can actually also involve people outside if you want to, but that's sort of rarer. And you are assigned I guess a teacher or mentor, and that takes you through the process. So for people who are interested in entrepreneurship, you can, we had some people who are coming up with their own ideas or coming in with their own ideas, and others who maybe want to lend their expertise to a entrepreneurship project and see if actually that is something that they'd like to do. So I had Thomas Hellman, who took me through our project, and I was sort of a bit more experienced on the entrepreneurship side, but we had some team members that weren't as experienced and really enjoyed the project. And some people did it and was like, not for me. So it does take you through sort of all the peaks and troughs of entrepreneurship experience. You present to, I guess, faux VCs, a panel, and they sort of give you feedback like they would hypothetically a real project. So it's pretty well thought out, and it is an experience. There's also an entrepreneurship center very close to the business school itself. So if that is the way you are inclined, there is a lot of avenues there for you to get involved. I think, as sort of Mariah mentioned on the dinner side, if you are interested on the entrepreneurship side, there is a large sort of, I guess, groundswell of that from the actual university students themselves. So that's not just the business school. Undergrads, scientists, etc., come through that, and you might be able to do a little bit of work with them once again if that's something you're interested in.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. So a few questions on your pre-MBA experiences. What kind of preparation did you do before coming to Oxford? And do you have any tips and advice?
I can start that one. So as preparation, I remember that there were a lot of people doing like Wall Street prep and studying a lot. And I remember that there were a lot of people preparing for interviews like 1 month before going to the MBA. And here just like a personal advice, don't do that. I mean, enjoy the MBA. You will have a lot of time to look for work during the MBA. So don't start stressing before. I don't think it's worth it. I'm sure that here in the panel there's people that think a bit different, so happy to listen to them as well. But in my opinion, just enjoy the MBA. You will have, I remember that our first class of analytics, that was like something that was a bit scary for me because I was like a lawyer and I didn't have a lot of like quant education. I was like, okay, it's going to be very difficult. And I remember that the first class that was a prep class inside business school, it was literally like very, very basic, that everyone was laughing at the first class. So you will have all the preparation at site. Don't do like over preparation. It's not worth it.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Aditya, after you, mate.
Yeah, I think I just want to add that, I think Laura's absolutely right. Don't over-prepare for the MBA itself. But I think what you will realize is that the MBA is so time-intensive that the other people in your life, you're likely to not have a lot of time for them during the MBA itself. So if you have the ability to actually spend a lot of time with friends or family, or travel, or do those sorts of things, like imagine that you may not be available as much for those people in your life during the MBA itself, right? So this is something that that a alumni that I spoke to told me, and I'm glad that I made a few trips before the MBA program, before I came to Oxford, because I really did not have the time to talk to those connections in the year. Uh, the other interesting thing was again something that an alumni had mentioned to me, that during your pre-Oxford career, if you've made connections that you want to keep in touch with, the fact that you're going to Oxford for your MBA is a good chance to catch up with those people, give them an update, tell them that you're headed to Oxford, make them aware of what your plans are and what you might want to be doing in a year's time, because you don't know if any of those connections come in handy during or after the MBA as you start looking for roles or looking for opportunities. So focus on the people, within your personal space or professionally, rather than worrying about the prep that you want to do before the MBA.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with both of you. Just don't worry about the academic side of things. Sort out all the stuff that is going to take away time for you to be able to enjoy the MBA. Make sure all your life admin, as I'd call it, is taken care of, because you're going to want to spend as much time fully immersing yourself in the Oxford experience. And how you immerse yourself is obviously up to you, but yeah, that's the stuff you should be concentrating on. The academic stuff, all of that, Oxford is obviously a phenomenal university. If you put in the effort, you won't fail. There's so much support, both in terms of what the faculty will offer, but also fellow classmates. So I wasn't very good at analytics or accountancy, but one of my best friends from the course used to teach accountancy. So he helped me out with that. Another person who used to teach at Stanford was on the course, and he was running analytics prep classes the weekend before the analytics exam. So don't worry about the academic side of stuff, because there's enough support there to help you. But yeah, the softer stuff, the stuff that is going to take away time, try and get those things sorted if you can.
I have a nice and straightforward question. It is, what was your favorite subject and why?
I can go first. I'm in the technology space. I took this class with Professor Mark Ventresca, which is called Strategy and Innovation, and it blew my mind in several ways. It focuses on the theory of innovation. It starts in the 1700s with a case from that time, and how learnings from that case continue to be relevant to technology adoption cycles, to innovation cycles today. Yeah, that was a standout experience. I think another one competes with that. There's this course called the Leadership Perspectives from the Humanities, which is taught by a professor who sort of takes leadership lessons from things like orchestra conductors and architects, and how those people are actually leaders who sort of construct these experiences for you. So I've spoken about a couple of academic experiences that I enjoyed. I think people on the panel might have other ideas.
I remember, I can think of 2 or 3 particular courses which were especially valuable. I really appreciated the entrepreneurship project, because that was a really interesting example of bringing together a lot of what you learn in the previous terms. So fundamentals like accounting, finance, etc. It coalesces and it provides you real world experience. So I thought that was particularly useful, and I can see how useful that is in my job today, in my overall understanding of business. The other one was entrepreneurial finance, which is an elective, which kind of goes hand in hand with it. Also an excellent course. I'm sure James Sully will be able to speak about that a little bit more, but it was really a fantastic course where you talk about the VC ecosystem, and how you evaluate whether a tech venture is worth investing or not, both from the investor side and even from the founder side. Yeah, I thought those 2 were particularly useful. And there was one called Reputation and Leadership, which I think is a dark horse course. I think it's an elective, and it probably wasn't the most subscribed to elective, but I thought it was fantastic because we dove very much into real world cases of reputational issues in organizations and how those were handled. I thought that was a fantastic one, particularly if you're aspiring to be a leader and handling real world crises. So I think those were the three that I particularly still think of even today in my job.
One that I can talk about that hasn't been mentioned yet is global strategy. So Mark Shepin, who was the professor, he used to be like a VP at Lufthansa, I think. He's amazing. First of all, he's such a great professor. He's super interesting. He really likes to get the class involved. Not that the other professors don't, of course, but he's just very vibrant and fun and sarcastic, so I was a big fan. But global strategy was definitely stands out to me as one of my favorite classes because he specifically picks cases that are that are very global. So some of the cases that we had earlier in the year and other classes potentially could sometimes be a little bit US or UK centric, which is understandable as many large companies are in the US or the UK. But for global strategy, it was a different case from a different part of the world or a different country every week. And I think what I got out of it most is I'll still never forget, we were doing a case on some oil company that was off of some teeny random island of like the northeastern coast of Russia. And there we go. And Shepin's talking about like this, it's a population of 14 and it's like negative 3,000 degrees. And all of a sudden, one of the students in the class raises their hand and they're like, oh yeah, I worked on that island for a year or something. And it was just like the coolest thing ever. Like he's telling us how 14 people ever have visited this island and one of those people is actually in the class. And you'd think, okay, that's a one-off case. I swear, 2 weeks later, we're doing a case about a mobile phone company between India and Africa. And another classmate was like, oh yeah, I worked on this deal. And so it's just, that was really cool to not only just see the globalness of the cases that we can do in that class, but to just learn about different perspectives of people who have actually worked in these exact cases basically, or similar ones as well. It just goes to show kind of the diverse nature of the people who do attend Said, and what you can actually get out of that is learning just things that you would have never thought of before. So that was just such a great class.
Just to jump on that point, because it's such a good point, it's such a cliche, but it's so true that you will learn more from your classmates than you will from the faculty. Because of the way that the MBA is put together by the fantastic admissions team, I'd say this even if they hadn't organised this event, you really do get a very diverse group in terms of background, geographies, cultures, everything. And there is a good chance whenever you're talking about a topic in a class, there is going to be someone who has good experience and can talk through some of the details on exactly what happened or something similar. And it's really unique. And that was, for me, always one of the selling points of Oxford, because it was just the group of classmates you have is fantastic. It's so diverse and you will definitely learn more. And the faculty, they don't get offended when you say that because it's the whole point, but you will learn more from your classmates than you will from them. And they're fantastic.
Another thing I want to add is, I don't know how that's going to be with COVID, but in our year, we had these international electives. So in April, they offer you 3 different options. One is to go to New York to do a course related to marketing. Then you have London for fintech and South Africa for doing business in Africa. And I think like the 3 different electives were amazing. I think they were one of the favorite course of everyone that took them.
I guess just lastly on my side, I'd echo about Mark. Mark was great in sort of global business strat. But the one I'd sort of give a shout out to is Rachel Botsman in Trust and Digital Age. She's a superstar, and the concepts can be applied across any business you do. And they had some great speakers coming in talking about real life issues. And we actually worked a little bit with some of the businesses that were coming up with some of these issues around sort of trust in the digital world. But that can be applied to business, to your personal life, to every interaction you have, which I found, I guess, very enriching, I guess, as a person, not just as a student.
Brilliant, thank you everyone. So there is a question here from Hugh for Laura and Mariah. And he asked, I'd love to hear more about the nature of the social impact work and how that's impacting your work at Google and McKinsey now.
Um, so, I mean, I did my internship in the Diageo Empowerment Trust, working with South African entrepreneurs. That was very interesting. But the better part of it was afterwards when I joined Generation. So Generation is a nonprofit that was actually founded by McKinsey, and they try to deal with youth unemployment worldwide. And I loved it. I loved it. And like my plans now are to take Generation to Colombia. I think that social impact is everywhere. I think it's just the difference, like how did you implement it in the different industries or topics you're working on. I particularly didn't love just working in social impact. I like social impact that has a lot of like business related stuff and that is sustainable. And I think that's a very good learning from the MBA. And it's like social impact is great and doing good is great, but how do you do good also being profitable and not just like creating a company and trying to help people and then breaking. Like that was my experience in my internship, was that the guy that hired me had financial issues with his social impact company, and basically it was very difficult. Like he was not helping anyone because he was not making profit. But then I joined a social impact organization that was also making profit. So I think that was like the big learning.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. I definitely liked the social impact part of Oxford without really, I guess, understanding or knowing if it was something that I wanted to do kind of further in my career. But it was really amazing to go and see so many classmates who had already done so many amazing things in the social impact space. It was actually quite humbling because I basically just worked at Microsoft as like a technology advisor, basically, whereas other people had set up companies, or we had a doctor in our class who had provided like loads of free kind of healthcare to underrepresented groups in different countries. And so I think that's kind of where I learned the most about social impact, was from my classmates. And there's a lot of really great opportunities as well to kind of get involved in social impact. So there's the Social Impact Lab, which I didn't take part in, but a lot of my classmates did, and they really liked it. There's also a lot of social impact investing things. So in my year, we had Mint, which was for social impact investing. So of course, there's many different sides of social impact. You know, which side do you want to explore, and how do you want to do that? There's multiple different tools, as well as the social impact folks in the careers center as well. So I had a few meetings. There's, you know, different folks in the careers department kind of focus on specific industries. So I had a few meetings with some of the social impact focused folks, which was also super helpful. So I think social impact is something that's, it's not currently something that I'm working on. I'm still doing very much technology kind of focused work, but it's certainly something that is my time at Oxford has kind of instilled it in me as something that I'd like to keep in mind and definitely look for in the future as well.
Great, thank you. There are a couple of questions about the co-curricular activities. I think, Mariah, you just mentioned the Social Impact Lab. Could you maybe please talk about any labs that you were involved in, if any, or just any other co-curricular activities that you really enjoyed or that you heard from classmates were really great?
I can, I guess, go there if you'd like to start. So I was lucky enough, I played in the Oxford golf team. So that was sort of a 3-day trudge at sort of the starts of November through to March. But it was great. I got to visit lots of golf courses around the UK and get involved with the, I guess, Oxford Blues and Oxford Blue Network. And that comes with its own sort of rich history and clubs and different areas you can go into. I also have a lot of friends who are involved in the Oxford Seed Fund. That was something that was really sort of interesting and they found quite enriching. So they basically played that role for an entire year. And I guess on the other extracurricular side, I think we mentioned a couple of things around colleges, you know, getting involved in your college committees and that type of thing. And me personally, I played a lot of different college sports. So it was more on the sports side where I was involved extracurricularly.
There's also, so I mentioned a few, so MINT, which I believe is social impact investing. There's the social impact lab. I think James had mentioned the entrepreneurship center. So there's loads of different things like that as well. There's also the Oxford strategy group, which I believe does some intra-Oxford kind of consulting as well. So if consulting is something that you're interested in or that you are kind of thinking about, it's a really good way to kind of test that out with some actual real world problems too. But these are just a few off the top of my head, but there are so many other you know, opportunities within the college, but also outside of the college as well. So personally, I was involved with the OxWib, so Oxford Women in Business. So there's, it's mostly undergrads, but it's a really great way to kind of mentor and talk to undergrad women in business who are looking to, you know, careers and what they want to do after they graduate. And it's a humbling experience to talk to a 18 or 19-year-old at Oxford who, you know, it's amazing. The undergrads there are fantastic, and they just have a lot of knowledge to share, and they just are really interested to hear about what's it like to have a career, what's it like to have a job, basically. So that was also really cool to get involved with things that are within the University of Oxford, but outside of the business school too.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So there's a question from Darshan. Can you please describe some personal experience with using the Said alumni network to help you gain personal traction in your respective careers, or simply advice you were seeking?
I've got a really quick one that I can, sorry, I'm jumping in. The company I work for right now, the founders were both Oxford PhD alumni. The head of product, who sort of brought me over after doing his internship there through Oxford, was from Oxford as well. And when I was exploring consulting in London, I used the Oxford network with a really brilliant young girl who was a alumni called Sarah West Young. So it's been very helpful for me.
And I can add to that, it's not just the MBA alumni network, you also have access to the broader university alumni network, which is, I think, far bigger than the MBA. In my experience, whenever I've had questions about specific expertise area in technology, like for instance, in my work, I wanted to once speak to a security expert. Then there have been career transition questions that I've had, etc., or location geography questions. I have actually reached out to random alumni on LinkedIn, and they've been super helpful. I think you just sort of, with the MBA, you get that instant ability to have that conversation and the way to open doors. So that's been hugely helpful for me.
So I've used the official channels less, but whenever I've needed anything from a work perspective or I've had questions, I've just reached out to some of my friends on the course, and they've either been able to help or they know people. And it really is a community. So people know people. People will say, oh, you should chat to Simon, you should chat to Matt about whatever, because they know the types of stuff you're working on. And that happens all the time. It was my birthday last weekend. I had a barbecue, had a few people come in a socially distanced and responsible way. Yeah, a lot of friends from the MBA there and talking about the jobs and stuff. And it's, yeah, there is a proper community there. The other thing is, so I used to travel a lot with work. I used to be head of international trade at Tech UK and used to travel a lot. And whenever I traveled to places, I would just drop a note to the MBA group, see who was in Tokyo, see who was in Seoul. And the classmates would put me up, or wouldn't put me up, they'd be in a hotel, but they would go out for drinks, we would go out for food. Some of the times I would know the people really well and I was friends with them, of course. Others I wouldn't at all, but because I was part of the class, I'd just reach out and say, hey, I'm going to be in Tokyo. If you're about, it'd be great to grab a drink, and go and meet them. And it's just, that network around the world is just fantastic, both from a social point of view, but also a work point of view, because the question inevitably comes up, well, what are you doing in Tokyo? Is that, oh, well, we're working on this. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Well, we're working on this. Maybe there's something we can do. And it is, yeah, it's amazing. I had no appreciation for how my friendship group and my business network would come so closely together, and you find yourself collaborating with friends rather than a network, and it makes such a difference. It's really, yeah, it's really, really fantastic.
My experience with interacting with alumni is, I think during the course of the MBA, you'll have ample opportunity to meet alumni on campus, particularly when it's like, you know, career center driven visits, you know, with companies visiting and alumni typically make an appearance as well and network. So there's a great opportunity there to learn more about their companies and their career journeys. And I found those very helpful within Oxford. When it comes to outreach, particularly when you're looking for a job during the course of the MBA and you're reaching out to alumni, maybe kind of like either through an introduction or, you know, direct outreach. I think one of the things I found them to be also really quite responsive, and it is a community, so I echo what everyone else has said. One of the things I'd say is the value I derive from some of those conversations, particularly from a job perspective, was when I really did a lot of research on the alumni or the alum and even their organization. So I think it's about also elevating the quality of the conversation that you have with these people, if you're looking from a very professional context as well. So there's that to bear in mind. But what everyone said absolutely about there being a community and people being available, that's spot on.
And I can just give one last tidbit. So during the MBA, I applied for the Google MBA internship, kind of on a whim. And I ended up getting an interview, and I was able to go to the careers department and just say, like, listen, I have an interview for this Google MBA internship. Do we have any alum that are currently there? Is there anyone I can talk to? Has anyone ever done this before? And they quickly kind of put me in touch with a girl from the class previous to mine who had done the internship and then had actually stayed on full time. And she was super responsive. We had a really great call. She gave me just some kind of tips and tricks for the interview. And I was successful in the interview. So I did get the internship at Google because of the interviews. And it was really because of her help, just kind of giving me a little bit further background information around what her experience was like, what her internship experience was like. So I have tried to kind of pay that forward as well, because I know it's something that we did as MBAs and as potential MBAs. So something that I'm sure we're all happy to do kind of as alumni as well, is just to make sure that the continuance of the success of the Said MBA and everyone on the course can, you know, do better than we did, basically.
Thank you, Mariah. We actually had a couple of questions about internships. So I was just wondering if anyone else did an internship, and also if you ended up working at that company where you did your internship.
So I did an internship during the summer term. I did it at a startup not too far from Oxford that specialized in edge artificial intelligence. It was about a month and a half. My experience was excellent because I was drafted in to do a kind of business plan for new product launches. I didn't end up working there, and I work at AWS, but it was an excellent experience. I think you get really, particularly with it being a startup, there was a lot to learn on the job as well. And I thought it was nice also to get that separate environment when, you know, the rigors of academia are really, you know, you're having to deal with that almost every day until the summer term. So I would encourage it. I thought it was a good experience. There was the option for a job at the same company at the end, but I chose to go elsewhere. Alongside the internship, if you're doing in the summer term, there's also an assignment. So you need to write up, I think it was about 5,000, 3,000 words. I can't remember. It was a lot of words. Where you need to, you know, quantify and qualify the impact you had during the course of the internship. And while that's demanding, it's also really rewarding when you write it out to see the impact you did bring. So yeah, I had a great experience with the internship. Yeah, and also if it's a paid internship, it helps, obviously, because of the remuneration. Yeah, that was my experience.
So those were a couple of examples of people who found internships through the official channels. For me, the way it worked out was one of my friends in my class knew about my background and knew about my interests, and he put me on to another friend of his who was running an agency in London. We kept in touch, and after I finished the MBA, you know, I went to London and met them, and they proposed an internship. So this was something that just developed organically outside of the formal structures. I interned with this design agency for a couple of months, and then that converted into a full-time job. So yes, there's a lot of opportunity for landing internships through the formal channels, but don't discount the fact that your network might just be able to come up with something, and that will surprise you.
Lovely, thank you everyone. I'm conscious that we're kind of out of time, and we do have a few more questions to get through, so we can carry on for a little bit, but if anyone does need to leave on the panel, then please do. We'll just ask, there's a quick question about if there's anything that you would do differently while you were on your MBA, and why?
So I would say, I remember at the beginning of the MBA, someone maybe in orientation showed like a graph of your year, and it starts off really high, and then there's some lows and there's some ups and downs. And I was like, no, this is just gonna be a great experience. It's gonna just continue to go up the whole way. But come like January, February, it's kind of like rejection season. So it's just, everybody's applied to loads of jobs. It's the new year, so everybody's kind of scared about not finding work after the MBA, which is completely, it's a fear that everyone has. But I feel like January and February, the days in the UK are a lot shorter. Everyone's getting kind of rejection after rejection. So I would just say personally to myself, I wish I would have actually taken that graph seriously and maybe just planned in a few things. So maybe like taking a trip somewhere in January, or, kept in touch with my parents more in January or February, just because there will be ups and downs. So it's definitely a crazy hectic year, but being prepared for that is something I would say I would definitely have looked back and done differently, to just, feel more, in the end, everything works out, of course, but to just kind of get myself through the very short days in January and February, when you get about 4 hours of sunlight, and you're just kind of working away, just ready for the spring and summer.
This one might be unpopular, but I would personally say, from the experience that I've had with a couple of my friends, summer in Oxford's pretty amazing. Don't be too eager to leave, I would say, would be my sort of recommendation there. A lot of people who sort of and there's a lot of pressure on you post-MBA to get a job, and that is a lot of stress. But it is a year away for yourself to figure out a couple of things, maybe make their job change, etc. So a lot of people, I would say, who did leave saw sort of a lot of people enjoying their summers, etc., and enjoying that experience before they had to get back into the real world. So that's probably one that I would just say. I had my summer there, which was good, and jobs worked out, which is lucky, fortuitous. But I would just say, spend as much time, get involved with as much as possible while you're there, because there's so much to get involved with, and that's sort of not going to be the same for the rest of your life. I would say, like, this is a pretty special period in your life.
Hi, I have one question here from Nitesh, which I think would be for Aditya, and he has an engineering background, and he was wondering how an MBA complemented your engineering experience.
Sure. So I think for the benefit of everybody else, I'll just sort of try and respond to this in generic terms. I think the MBA will help you round out whatever skills you do not have, and it will allow you to polish the skills that you already have. So for instance, although I came to the MBA with an engineering background, I had built products on the engineering side. I had very little appreciation for how difficult it is to actually sell products to customers. What is the impact of marketing? What is the impact of positioning, and operations and all of those things? So with my background in engineering and execution, I was able to understand the bits that I was missing, like for instance, strategy and marketing and operations. And I'm sure that's the experience for everybody coming to the MBA. You come to the MBA with a set of skills, but then it's sort of all of the complementary skills that the MBA gives you that was, that combination has been really helpful for me since I finished the MBA.
Lovely, thank you. So I think we'll have to finish up now. Just end really quickly on this last one. what's been your favourite memory of the Oxford MBA experience?
For me, it was the MBATs, which was basically a sports tournament held at the HEC campus in just outside of Paris. And then basically the top business schools from Europe all get together for sort of like a mini Olympics, which is really good fun because it's there's a lot of exercise and stuff in the day and just a lot of partying in the evening. And it's really good. And that kind of feels like a really cementing point in the MBA, where you really feel like an Oxford community, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, very enjoyable, and make sure you go if you can.
I won't say the same, but absolutely, it was amazing. I would say sort of if I had to pick down to one day, I love Jon Stewart and Dave Chappelle, and they did a talk at the Oxford Union for sort of a couple of hours, and then did a Q&A after that, and that was pretty special. We got in early, got front row seats, and whoever is your sort of Jon Stewart, Dave Chappelle, generally they're popping into Oxford to do some talks, and that's pretty amazing from my side. Oh, and Billy Joel, that was pretty amazing too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. So I think we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon, and a very special thank you to what's left of our alumni panel. It's so lovely to hear such positive and insightful comments about your experiences in Oxford. I'm sorry that we couldn't get through to everyone's questions today, but Sam is going to write our email address in the chat box now, so please do give us an email and we will get back to you. I hope you're also able to join us for our career session this afternoon at 2 o'clock. I hope you're all well. Have a lovely rest of your days. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.